Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
In episode 30, Pia Antico discusses with us being fearless after 40 and how we can become more joyful in our life.
The world out there is doing its thing. We are in a physical world, but we're energetic beings in it. And when those people were doing what they were doing, I was originally believing that, as they would say, they'd say things like, you made me angry, you made me do it. And we do walk through this society with a fundamental belief that other people and other events cause how we feel. And naturally, if we have that belief, we then have an anxiety because we fundamentally can't control the outside world and the people in it. And if we take on that responsibility that we caused them to feel the way they did and therefore they treated us the way they did, we get caught up in trying to wonder what's wrong with us.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. The Healing Through Love podcast with host Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Healing Through Love is here to help victims, survivors of domestic and family violence find their way back into living a more fulfilling and meaningful life. We interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. As well as the Healing Through Love podcast, we hold annual Pamper Days in Adelaide, South Australia for survivors of domestic and family violence. Local businesses come together and pay it forward by providing their services and resources for the day to give our survivors a much-needed day of indulgence. We are always looking for organisations or people with similar values to participate in our Pamper Days. So please get in touch if you want your organisation to be seen and to be heard. You can reach us at hello@htlaustralia.org. Now, my guest today is Pia Antico. And Pia, God bless her, is a lovely young lady. She is a #1 international best-selling author and international public speaker who intuitively guides single, empty nester women over 40 to ditch their regrets, live apologetically, age gracefully, and quit being unwilling bystanders in their lives without getting stuck rehashing, analysing, and reframing trauma stories. We'll discuss with Pia shortly about what she did after 50. Welcome, Pia, and thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me here, Rose. I have called me a young woman.
You're only a baby compared to me, so there you go.
Older than 45 either. What are you talking about?
I'm 63.
Oh, God. Well, there you go. You need to start giving us tips on, because honestly, you don't look older than 45. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's made my day.
Not that look, I am actually going to flip that one and go, not that looking is that whole, I must admit, I hate the whole thing out there with in the midlife and aging space for women, where it's all about supposedly looking younger and even to the degree I don't even like the feeling younger, because youth is not equivalent to vitality. And well, what's, this whole looking younger thing as well. Like, come on, really. You just look well, you look healthy, you look fabulous. And,
Thank you.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate you. I do appreciate
Thank you.
you. Hey, they're telling me what happened to you after 50.
Well, I turned 50. Oh God, we're already in 2023. I turned 50 in April last year. And what happened after 50 for me was finally realizing that I didn't need to keep redefining who I was and all my past experiences as my personality, as a reason for who I am and how I got here and all that stuff. Because prior to 50, I've been 3 near deaths before 30, one including being run over at high speed and sustaining a major head injury. And I have been in 2 abusive marriages, one from age 22 through till 35. And then I had 5-6 year break between no dating, no partners, no anything. And then my second husband turned out to also, took a little bit longer for him to show himself, but then, yes, he turned out to also be a very controlling, violent man as well. And for him, I'd actually packed up my life here in Australia and moved overseas to live with him, having spent some time there with him and his family and friends and community for about 6 weeks couple of years before I finally moved over there. So yes, unfortunately, I did realize that I didn't do the healing that I needed to do between that marriage and the first one, even though there were years in between. I realize now it's not about the length of time necessarily, but what you do with it. And not realizing that the same building blocks between what got me in my first marriage did play itself out again in the second, with an added internalized ageism as well for the second one, because I was already 39 heading into 40. I was feeling like all that messaging that we get that, well, we're all getting older, we're going to miss out, everything's going to roll up now, and it's all downhill from here. And so funnily enough, I found myself marrying a younger man. It was an older man when I was married, younger man first time, younger man when I was married the second time. And that unconscious ageist bias that we've got to somehow make up for lost time in our youth and try and capture it again or something, and both realizing that it's all both basically because I didn't fully appreciate and accept and celebrate and love myself in all my imperfect glory at either ages, young or even as I was turning 40. So 50, it's all just about listening to what works for me, really tuning into my inner wisdom, not worrying about what other people are thinking and how they're doing stuff. I also learned that trust isn't about the other person or the other event, but about learning to listen to my own intuitive wisdom. And if it doesn't feel good to me now, I just say no, with no explanation needed. And if it feels great, I push on, even if I have no idea how it's all going to end. But it's following my own instinct, my own intuition. And that has been a huge change at 50.
Yeah, I always believe that, and I have been through, similar, but healing, especially after your first abusive relationship, you need to heal, and I didn't do that either, and so I found that I was attracting the same person.
Yeah.
Just in different clothes and
Different wrapping. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Like, no,
And healing is so important before you embark on even thinking about getting into another relationship, because sometimes childhood trauma can manifest itself when you get into a relationship with a partner, whether it's male or female as your partner. It's so I dragged a lot of my childhood into my first marriage, or even in my first serious relationship. And I just didn't heal at all. And so I just kept perpetrating the same drama, throughout my whole life, until I decided that it was time for me to let go of those horrible things and spend some time on myself, so that I didn't end up in another abusive relationship, and that I was, honoring myself.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel addressing the notion of healing, I know that the standard way that we've been taught to approach that is to look back, to try and analyze and make further conclusions on the image we have in our head of what was in the present moment thinking. And what really helped me actually finally coming to my present moment wisdom was to understand one fundamental thing, that the world out there is doing its thing. We are in a physical world, but we're energetic beings in it. And when those people were doing what they were doing, I was originally believing that, as they would say, they'd say things like, you made me angry, you made me do it. And we do walk through this society with a fundamental belief that other people and other events cause how we feel. And naturally, if we have that belief, we then have an anxiety, because we fundamentally can't control the outside world and the people in it. And if we take on that responsibility that we caused them to feel the way they did, and therefore they treated us the way they did, we get caught up in trying to wonder what's wrong with us, what could we have done differently, all that kind of stuff. And that hooks us energetically into the past for longer. And what enabled me to actually finally let go of everything was realizing that no, they had their own problematic thinking, whatever their thinking was that resulted in them choosing to be responding to their problematic thinking in harmful ways. I didn't cause it. It wasn't my responsibility. And nor did I even need to understand why they did what they did. It's just that it's just that they had troublesome thinking. And once I understood that, finally, from the first and then the second, not only did it enable me to stop having conversations with them in my head years later, and keeping me stuck there, it let me release them into the ether with a prayer of goodwill that, hopefully they sort their crap out, but it's not my problem. And then I was able to focus on me and my experience of my inner being and the conclusions I was making about my world that I was creating for myself, and being more trusting of that inner guidance that says, no, that doesn't feel so good. Yes, that feels really awesome. And being in the present moment. And to me, that's where the healing is. The healing is because we are already fundamentally, by our energetic nature, we are whole, we are radiant, we are unconditional love, and we have innate well-being. So for me, when I work with women now in my life, I don't focus on the rehashing, reframing, and looking back as a part of the healing process. because what we do when we do that in the present moment, we're just adding extra layer of story and conclusions, and we are never going to have complete and utter clarity about other people's thinking, other people's intentions, and what was going on. So in the end, understanding that we did the best we could with what we had has been so key to moving on, being able to forgive myself for what I didn't know, how I didn't show up for myself, and that ability to go, no, that was them. They had their problem. It wasn't me. I didn't cause it. And that's been so helpful. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, as victim survivors, you know, we most often tend to blame ourselves, but you know, their behavior really has nothing to do with us.
Nothing.
I mean, unless we have been the cause of some sort of angst and we know that, then I'll take that on the chin. But however, if we've not been the cause of it, then we're not responsible for their behavior or their thoughts or their feelings. No one can make us feel anything except pain, perhaps, if they, you know.
As I said, we are physical beings. If we stub our toe,
but I agree with you in the sense that no one can make us feel anything, because
we think
it, and then and to finally find yourself and you know, present yourself to the world as you want to be seen. That's really important. And as long as we feel good about ourselves and what we are doing, then you know, really, who gives a flying banana if you know, they don't like it? Well, it's their problem, because really we are who we are, and we need to, you know, stand by what we believe in.
Absolutely. Can we put a pause on this? I'll just tell him to put it inside the
So getting back to the feelings things, I agree with you in a sense that no one can make us feel what we don't want to feel, and if we take on board their feelings, well, then we're only doing ourselves harm.
Yes, and to clarify, it's not saying that there aren't people out there through there, as I was saying, my ex-husbands, indeed, because they had a story going on that the outside world and the people in it are making them happy. I mean, we say it so commonly. We say things, our job is pissing us off, our partner is annoying us, our kids are driving us crazy, or we say the holiday made us happy, or whatever. We all commonly say this, that the people and events in our lives are the cause of how we feel. And if we scratch the surface of that, that's a really anxiety-producing notion, because we fundamentally know that the outside world, we can't control it. We're not in people's heads. We cannot know their reality. We might all watch the same. Say, for instance, I love this analogy. We all might be watching the same movie together, and we might even be eating from the same bucket of popcorn. But your experience of the popcorn and the movie is vastly different to my experience of the popcorn and the movie. And we can try and talk to each other about our seemingly joint experience, but we come equipped in that situation with different life experiences, different thoughts in our head, different feelings as a result of the stories that we have, that give us a very different experience of the same physical event. So in the end, people are doing stuff, things are happening. And indeed, this is not to give carte blanche to people who are physically causing harm to us, who are trying to create a difficulty in our lives. It's not saying, oh, well, that's okay, we accept it. No, in fact, the beauty of knowing that is we are in this universe for an experience of love and well-being, because that is the nature of the universe. So anything other than that, we're we're not here to deal with. It's not what we're meant to be experiencing. So if we are finding ourselves in a very difficult situation, we get to choose to leave it. And what, funnily enough, kept me in my abusive marriages a lot longer than I needed to be was because I was believing that idea that, well, I'm causing them to feel that way, so it's my responsibility to try and figure out what I'm doing wrong, and that must mean that I can control how they feel. So if I make them feel better, then, I was taking on a whole lot of stuff that wasn't mine to take. All I needed to do for myself was to realize that I'm not here in this lifetime to experience harm. Stuff happens, but when it is harmful, we do need to find the safest way to leave that harm without having to explain it, judge it. It's a them problem, and I don't have to deal with it. And when I realized that, it was just so much easier to leave. And leave physically, and then finally leave it behind mentally, because even years after leaving physically, I still had them, in my thinking, in my emotions, for years afterwards, taking up space in my life that was not theirs to take.
Yeah, I remember when I left my first husband, I thought was my best friend, but turned out she wasn't. But anyway, she said, well, why are you leaving him? He's such a nice person. I said, yes, but you don't have to live with him.
Yeah.
And I mean, he wasn't physically abusive, but he was emotionally abusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's even more harmful. And,
oh, yeah.
And then you start believing the rubbish that they, keep telling us, because you trust this person. They must, you trust this person to know who you are, and for them that, they might see you in a different light, and they brainwash you into believing something that's not true.
Yeah.
And we need to, just be stronger. And I know a lot of that belief comes from not loving yourself enough. If you loved yourself enough, you wouldn't believe the rubbish that other people tell you, that you're stupid, or you're useless, or you can't cook, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you are this and you are that. It's obviously comes from a belief within yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe it.
Yes. And again, it's really lovely. I feel that the biggest, I guess the biggest insights that I've been having, and I will explain where my insights originate from. Prior to my certification as a coach in the 3 Principles Paradigm by Sydney Banks, anyone can Google it and start looking at this framework of explaining how experience happens. And it's framed as a paradigm because, like gravity, it explains how our world works, our experience works. And prior to that, yes, many degrees in psychology, and coming from cognitive behavioral background, and with that focus on the content of what we're thinking as being the focus of our well-being and our sense of self-esteem and self-love and well-being. And what I've come to understand through the 3 Principles paradigm is that we have thinking, we have habitual thought that arises. We have feelings in response to that. They ebb and flow like the tide and pass. But underneath that tide of habitual thinking and nervous system response is our consciousness, is our wisdom consciousness. And we all have it. And we all innately have well-being. And radiant wisdom and unconditional love. We are at that energetic level. We are all perfect. And when we understand that and we guide ourselves from that space, as opposed to the thought constructs of personality and self-esteem, we realize that we don't actually have to do anything to make ourselves more lovable, to make ourselves love ourselves more, or anything like that, because it's not about abstract behaviors and thinking. It just is. We are by nature love. And even those crappy people in our lives, those abusive partners, shock, horror. It took a bit of a while to really accept this one too, but they too are wisdom beings. They too have that core well-being. The problem is they don't realize it. The problem is they believe the story that they have in their head, that they're projecting onto the world, that our society does reinforce. And that's what they're responding to. Because as I said before, if we believe that the outside world is causing our feelings, that's actually really scary. That's like we have no control over our experience, and we just, that is really scary. And if you kind of really believe that that's how things are, well, then quite naturally you are going to act in a fearful, angry, rejecting kind of way to the things that you think are problematic in your life. And equally, you would respond to the things that you do like in your life that you think are caused by the outside world. You would act in a kind of possessive, jealous, controlling kind of way to keep them. But when we understand that that's not the case, and that we come equipped with innate well-being, that's where our love of self, that's where our confidence comes from. From there, it's such a beautiful realization. And it also then enables you to let go of those difficult people with that's, to me, is what that forgiveness looks like. It's not condoning their shitty behavior, but it's understanding, well, gee, if they're behaving that way, they're clearly not in touch with the core of their well-being. And that's actually really sad. Not my problem, but that's really sad. And when you realize that, you can send them off into the ethers, sort themselves out, and not carry them with you in your thinking, in your emotions, and into your future.
Absolutely.
And that's been fundamentally the most healing that I've experienced at this point in my life. Yeah.
Belief in self and self-love are just so important.
Absolutely.
Pia, you've got something that you would like to offer our listeners today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I do have I've got a number of different offers, but I would love for my beautiful audience to know that I do have a free webinar on fearlessness after 50. And in that webinar, I walk my beautiful women through my 6-step Awaken the Joy Within framework that is inspired by this 3 principles paradigm that I'm trained in. And what it's looking at is how we get to show up in our lives with that tapped into that innate well-being and innate confidence through awareness, through our wisdom, through appreciation, through the self-kindness, through cultivating a sense of equanimity, being okay, knowing that we're not even just being okay, but knowing that we're okay even when things don't look okay, and being in a present moment now focus. And when those elements interplay with each other in our lives, that's when we get to tap into our innate joyful wisdom in the present moment. So that is therefore for you to sign up for, if that is something you'd be interested in.
Where can they find that, Pia?
The link, I can give you a link.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, I shall.
For people to get in touch with you if they have interest in participating.
Yes. I'm going to my bio site. Well, the link can be the link is on my website, essentialawakeningmentoring.com. But I can also, as we are talking right now, do you want me to drop the link into the comment section
Into
here?
the chat would be great. Thank you.
I will do that right now.
And Pia, where else can people find you if they want to follow you? Because you're an amazing woman. I've been following you on Facebook for a long time, and
thank you.
Well, and
Facebook, as you said, so Pia Antico on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. I think I'm kind of using Instagram more because the stories you can add links to and then push over to Facebook, so that's really handy. I keep threatening to do TikTok, but I am in there, but I have not gotten consistent.
I don't like TikTok. I don't like who has control of the information, and
it's all too much.
It bothers me a little bit. So
it absolutely, and so, and I also have a podcast that I look forward to you being a guest speaker on soon. I'll drop you the booking link. I start recording for it in March. Through the rest of the year, getting more wonderful speakers like yourself to join me, and that is Crone Life Revolution podcast. That can be found on all the major podcast
channels.
And Crone, I'll just jump in and say, most people think Crone. No, not Crohn's disease.
No, Crone the other one.
Crone, but Crone being the wisdom goddess, the divine feminine wisdom goddess archetype energy that is within all of us, no matter age, gender, identity, and all the stuff. But for us to focus on reframing the often patriarchal, misogynistic, ageist, fat-phobic messaging out there, I'm all about reclaiming that crone. Because the crone, actually, her title crone is crowning stage of womanhood. And unfortunately, about 11th century, we had the rewriting of her role in society, and the suddenly turning the title crone into a warty old witch of Disney kind. So yes, reclaiming the crone is, for me, a revolutionary act. It's understanding that we have innate wisdom and we tap into it even more as we get older and have our lived experience. And so I fundamentally am about redefining what our midlife looks like and what aging looks like. So if you're into that kind of stuff too, then definitely look me up.
Yes, ageism is a horrible thing. Once you hit 40, people think you're old, and you're definitely not.
Oh, definitely not. And I mean, if you YouTube, I mean, this is one thing that just really, just YouTube and women 40, midlife, that kind of thing. Predominantly the stuff thrown at us is all about looking younger, losing weight, how to dress for 40, or what have you. I mean, like, come on, people. There's a lot more going on in our lives now and through till we land in our grave than worrying about our weight, the wrinkle.
I love my laugh lines. I mean, they show that I've lived life. So, really.
And I'm definitely not the same figure that I was when I was 20. Yes, the midlife weight has come on and that, but really it's not about it. So what? This whole
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Focus on, you've got to be skinny or something. This is ridiculous. So I challenge all that and all that message.
Be happy in your own skin. Doesn't matter if it's wrinkly and baggy or wrinkly and rotund, it doesn't really
It
matter.
doesn't matter. I mean, our well-being, indeed, and the focus on well-being and health at any stage of our life is not synonymous with being skinny or having rock hard abs.
No, it's not.
No.
Absolutely. No. And
No.
that, we have to get rid of that vision of ourselves, or how it's been pushed on us, that you got to be fit, fabulous, and 40, really.
That whole thing. And it's actually really insidious, even for the one of the things I realized, again, the internalized ageism that got me in my second marriage. Similarly, on this note of skinny being associated with being successful, with being valid, with being legitimate in your expert field. Particularly as a coach, this it's actually kind of quite daunting. The messaging that you tell yourself that you're kind of picking up, that, oh, well, how could anyone take me seriously in the well-being space if I'm not super skinny and rock hard abs, and that whole idea of what, I don't know, success is meant to be. And gosh, it took a bit to realize that and work on throwing that one out, because no, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
In a larger body is not a sign of being inept or lacking expertise in what you are focused on in your life.
Absolutely true. Pia, I just before we finish up today, have you got any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience today?
The main words of wisdom is understanding that joy is your factory default setting. Even if life looks crappy in that present moment, you at your core, your energetic being is joy, and we have the capacity to tap into that even when the outside world is looking really stormy. And then that helps us to show up in life, show up and face the storm with more energy, with more optimism and enthusiasm. So
I love that.
Know that, understand that, please.
I love that. That's wonderful. Pia, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you,
to speak with you today, and for you to share your wisdom with us. I've loved every minute of it.
Thank you, Rose.
I hope we can chat again soon later on in the year.
Absolutely will. You'll be chatting with me over on my podcast.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a lovely afternoon.
You too. Thank you, Rose. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.